Once you've made sure all your screws are tight, the next thing that I would recommend doing is installing any accessories that you might have bought. For example, if you can find aftermarket bumpers, like from a company like RPM, or in this case I'm using T-Bone Racing, get them, put them on. They are lifesavers. I've got a rear and a front bumper from T-Bone that I put on this. They took 5 minutes to install. These are their nylon bumpers. Their nylon bumpers, I found out after I emailed them that they're guaranteed for life. I know that RPM bumpers are guaranteed for life. So it's cheap insurance for your car, because if you take a hard hit back here or up here, you can cause some severe damage. Is it a force field for your car? No. But it will help you prevent some major damage down the road. The next thing that I would recommend checking is check your batteries and make sure that your batteries fit. Do this before you even charge the batteries up. And the reason for doing this, I ran into an issue here with battery fitment. What I ran into is I'm using these nice Kershaw Designs LiPos. These are 7.4 volt LiPos. They're designed to fit this vehicle or to power this application. They are not necessarily designed to fit this vehicle. Okay? Now what I ran into is this has a good tight fit, but with most LiPos, your connections, your power connections, will exit through the top side of the battery here. And what happens when they exit here is I was running into a fitment problem up here at the top with the battery. So what I had to do, and I can show you on the other battery that I have, is I cut away some of the heat shrink here, and then by cutting away the heat shrink I could actually move the wires to where they come out of the battery naturally. Now if you're using LiPos, be very careful using any sharp instruments with them. If you puncture a LiPo, you're dealing with potentially hazardous material. So be very, very careful. When I got done with this first one, I put some electrical tape on it to cover up where I cut it and help try to prevent any kind of contamination on the inside of the pack. The other thing you want to do is make sure your connections match up. Your connectors, these use Dean's connectors. Make sure that your positive is the right one and your negative is the right one. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of trouble and you're going to cause your model damage if your batteries don't match up. Now let's talk about the body for just a minute. This HPI E-Firestorm 10T Flux came with a really nice silver body. It's got some cool flame graphics going for it. It's got a spoiler on the back of it. But with brushless, and with LiPo especially in brushless, you get a lot of heat. And this body doesn't have any real venting on it whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a reamer and I'm going to cut a hole in the front for airflow to move in, and I'm going to cut a hole in the rear close to where the ESC sits. What that's going to do is that's going to allow some airflow to come across the inside of the body and hopefully keep the ESC cool. If you look around enough on the internet, and if you run RC cars long enough, you will find plenty of guys who have had body damage from a hot ESC starting to melt or distort the plastic. Just a few more things to go over before you take your model out and run it for the first time. The next to last thing that you want to tighten up is your wheels. And that sounds kind of silly. We have this right rear off, so I want to make sure it's good and tight. I'm using a 7mm nut driver. I want to make sure the fronts are tight and both the rears. I've had plenty of wheels go flying off on me, and a lot of times it was because I forgot to check them before I ran. So make sure you check your wheels before you run. A couple of the last things that I would recommend doing before you go out is, one, if you want to add any stickers to your model, go ahead and put those on. If you're going to be doing any sort of on-car camera work, go ahead and stick a mount on. If you're sticking the mount on the body, make sure you put your antenna tube in if you're going to have an antenna coming up out of the body. Something else that will save you maybe some heartache and save your body more than anything is get some of these plastic washers from your local hobby store. You can also get them online from all kinds of hobby manufacturers. Traxxas, that's who happens to make these. What these do is these go on where your body posts come through, and your clips will ride on those. It'll help save your body from excessive wear. It spreads the load out a little bit across the body, so it makes it hard for it to crack and break there. And then last, what I like to do before I take a model out and run it, and after when I get back to clean it, take some of this orange oil. You can also use Armor All. I just like the orange oil because it smells better, and I feel like it's better to have in the house, even though it does have a lot of warnings on the back label. That being said, spray a little of this on a rag and just go over and wipe down the body, wipe down the chassis on the outside. If you've got bumpers, wipe down your bumpers. What that'll do is that'll make it easier to clean it off when you get done running. And then when you get done running, if you wipe it down again, it helps hide some of the scratches and scuffs and makes it look nice and shiny and new. Don't put it on the traction parts of your tires, and the reason for that is because that can actually inhibit your traction. So that's everything that I have to run through, with the exception of balancing tires. Some guys that race, some guys that bash like to balance their tires. I personally have never done it. Squirrel has a really good video out there for it, so if you feel like balancing your tires, go ahead and balance your tires, and you're ready to put your batteries in, fire up your transmitter, and run. Get out there and have fun.